From majestic forts in Rajasthan to Kerala's backwaters, it has seen a strong recovery since the pandemic. It has bounced back even stronger. It's the fourth largest industry in the country, a raise up to about $12.1 billion. Currently is valued at about 10.7 lakh crores. So the scale of the market is immense. Festivals like Diwali and Dussehra are usually followed by the wedding season, with many Indians spending on gifts, decor, jewelry, which is ultimately fueling a massive amount of demand and consumption across different sectors. In today's video, we'll look at the Indian wedding industry. The Indian wedding season peaks typically twice in a year, from November to mid-December, and from about mid-January to about July. These periods also align with high economic activity, particularly during the first season, which is during November to December, which also tends to overlap with large major festivals such as Dussehra, Diwali, etc. You can see it in the graph below. In today's video, we'll look at the wedding industry.
Industry estimates 32 lakh weddings are set to take place in India over the next 1 month.
Wedding economy to be the second largest industry of the country.
And see why this industry is expected to do well in the coming months. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment on the video. The Indian wedding industry is booming. It has bounced back even stronger, growing at an impressive 7 to 8% annually. According to WedMeGood, the industry is at a remarkable $75 billion, and it has seen a strong recovery since the pandemic. A survey of nearly 3,000 couples and about 500 vendors showed that there was nearly 15 to 22% increase on an year-on-year basis in terms of the business that was being generated from 2022 to 2023. As you can see in the graph as well below, there are nearly 1 crore weddings that are happening in India annually. It's the fourth largest industry in the country, valued at a staggering $130 billion currently. It also creates lots of employment, hiring approximately 10 million people in the country, from wedding planners to photographers to caterers to makeup artists, artisans, entrepreneurs, entertainers, and many more fields as well. This impact extends beyond the weddings industry specifically. It boosts allied sectors such as tourism. If you look at, for instance, hospitality sector, hotel bookings for weddings typically reach around about $603 million annually. Tourism sector draws a lot of people and a lot of travelers, which ultimately helps local economies. There's the retail sector, which is nearing approximately $1.2 billion in terms of amount of money that is being spent annually on wedding clothing. Nearly $7.2 billion is being spent on gold, jewelry, and sort of jewelry related items. There's technology and logistics sector. So there's a lot of inherent activity that happens because of weddings. So there are three fundamental growth drivers that are currently driving this industry in the Indian context. The first is rising disposable incomes. With increasing household income, families are ready to spend more and more on having a bigger and a more lavish wedding that ultimately reflects potentially their social status and making sure that their guests are having a fun time. Ultimately, they want to turn these memorable experiences into grand experiences. The second impact here is from the celebrity culture. Bollywood and high profile celebrities, influencers, they're having big lavish weddings, kind of setting the trend in terms of what we're seeing in terms of fashion, in terms of decor, the overall wedding theme, the styles, the destination weddings that are happening, and many more trends are happening. Ultimately, if you look at it, there are couples who are looking at these weddings as inspiration, as aspirational goals, that is ultimately driving this sort of demand for luxury services to try sort of mirror the celebrity lifestyle that we all are sort of attuned to through social media. And finally, there's government initiatives like Wed in India, which was launched by the government of India, which is promoting India as a top destination for weddings. With rising disposable income, social media's influence, destination weddings are becoming more and more accessible and are looking more attractive than ever before. So let's look at each one of these trends, so to speak, in depth. The wedding industry saw significant growth in 2023 as weddings became larger and more extravagant post the pandemic blues. Average guest size grew by nearly 15%, from 270 guests to about 310 guests from 2022 to 2023. Celebrations have also expanded, with couples now hosting an average of 4.2 functions as opposed to the earlier 3.2 functions. Expenses for weddings have historically been borne by the bride's family, but we are seeing a changing pattern here, where largely, especially in urban areas, around about 59% of the wedding costs are typically being split equally. But ultimately what we see in terms of the wider audience is that there is about 32% that still falls solely on the bride's family. Again, when you look at, let's say, millennial couples, they are typically more financially involved in urban areas. 70% of the brides and grooms are now taking responsibility from a financial perspective to spend on meaningful experiences, luxury services, the wedding costs that are involved, such as premium outfits, professional photography, photography, honeymoons, custom engagement rings, so on and so forth. In terms of consumptions, if we look at in terms of, let's say, alcohol consumption, that also has sort of gone up. We're looking at about 54% of weddings still remain alcohol free, but there are about 29% where it is being offered selectively, and about 17% where you're seeing weddings having alcohol in all functions. Ultimately, if you look at trends here, what we're also seeing is that there is a rise in artificial jewelry, with 36% of brides opting for artificial jewelry and ornaments. Approximately 16% looking at about choosing for, let's say, rental options in the market. This trend is also sort of pointing towards this change in attitude that's happening in terms of ownership at a wider audience set, with practicality often taking precedence over tradition. There is also a recent reduction in the gold import duties from about 15% to 6%. This is expected to further increase gold purchases this season, as gold remains both an investment and a cultural product for the Indian masses. The second point here that we're going to talk about is the luxury spending that's happening in India, and that's booming and rising. This is also going beyond the sort of traditional limits that we've seen historically. Gold and luxury used to be items that once signaled exclusivity. Today, it's becoming more and more accessible for more families, more weddings to sort of incorporate them in their festivities. And this is ultimately being fueled by the rising aspirations, the rising disposable incomes that many families are getting. In India, we're seeing a large number of weddings across different tier groups. You can see it in the graph below, where we're seeing nearly, let's say, 27 lakh weddings falling in the 10 to 25 lakh range, which sort of indicates a mid-range sort of wedding budget. There are obviously smaller budgets as well, approximately 3 lakh to 6 lakh, which account for 10 lakh weddings. Finally, there's high-end weddings where we're seeing costs of upwards of 1 crore as well, which sort of makes up about 50,000 weddings. So there's a wide variety, but the bulk of the weddings that are happening is in that 10 to 25 lakh range, which is approximately 27 lakh weddings in a year. India's luxury market is also expected to sort of triple, potentially reaching $85 to $90 billion by 2030. This rapid growth is being driven by a growing middle class, expansion into tier 2, tier 3 cities, the rising demand that's there for entry-level luxury products as well. In India specifically, the ultra-premium shopping malls are booming. Last year, Geo World Plaza, for instance, brought on board lots of luxury brands such as Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Cartier to Mumbai. There's luxury home sales that are happening in Delhi, Mumbai and Hyderabad. We've seen record sales in these sort of categories. Luxury car brands such as Mercedes-Benz, Audi, BMW are also seeing strong growth in the Indian market. Credit card spending has also been rising, and we're seeing a growing appetite for high-end, more premium products and experiences. If you want to know more about this, please watch our last video where we spoke about luxury consumption. And then the third point here is on the destination weddings. India is becoming a prime location for destination weddings. From majestic forts in Rajasthan to Kerala's backwaters, Goa's beaches, the hills of Uttarakhand or Himachal Pradesh, for instance, couples are choosing from a wide variety of options to make sure that their wedding is in a picturesque venue. With rising disposable incomes, social media's influence, destination weddings are becoming more accessible and more attractive than ever before. And ultimately, a lot of this also is being inspired by the government's initiative, which was earlier relying on a Make in India. That is, for the wedding industry, it's been turned into Wed in India, where they're sort of urging Indians and wealthy industrialists to have their weddings in India specifically. And the program is aimed to raise up to about $12.1 billion in terms of promoting businesses and promoting weddings within the sort of local industry. This is being led by the Ministry of Tourism, where they're promoting India as the global wedding destination and moving beyond the theme of purely just royal wedding images to actually looking at beaches, nature, Himalayan weddings, backwater weddings, etc., etc. And ultimately, the idea here is that 25 key destinations will be shown by the government to sort of help India become this wedding destination place for the world. So now let's look at some of the investment opportunities that exist in the sector. The wedding industry currently is valued at about 10.7 lakh crores, which is second only to fruit and groceries. Other significant sectors that are related to the wedding industry specifically are apparel and accessories, home decor, jewelry, consumer durables, health and beauty care, and many more such industries as well. So if you look at, let's say, a few stocks, for instance, IHCL is one such company that is a leader in luxury hospitality. It has strong financials. It has an impressive operating margin at about 32%. Although the pricing is currently at a high price to earnings ratio, they have a very diversified portfolio of services and are sort of projecting 62% sales growth over the next 3 years. Similarly, we have EIH, which is another hospitality stock that manages luxury brands such as Oberoi and Trident. It saw 72% over a 3-year sort of sales growth and has strong financials as well. It also has a low debt to equity ratio of about 0.05. But ultimately, beware of the cyclical nature that is there in the hospitality industry specifically. Other iconic brands that are there in terms of, let's say, Titan, Kalyan Jewelers, Arvind, Vedant Fashions, for instance. All of these are very well-known entities that are either catering to premium to mid-premium jewelry, eyewear, textiles, wedding wear, for instance. Few of these stocks will probably be trading at some sort of a premium right now, but the sales growth, the sort of outlook in terms of operating margins still looks pretty good and are definitely worth something that we should be sort of keeping an eye on. Specifically speaking about, let's say, Vedant Fashion, for instance, while it has a high PE, we're also seeing the brand has a very strong market position, efficient operations for growth potential. So there are quite a lot of opportunities that are available for investors that are looking at exploring the Indian wedding industry specifically. When we look at the future of the Indian wedding industry, I think India is expected to have roughly around 40 crore weddings taking place over the next 15 years. If you look at the sort of population demographics that we have, there are about 600 million people that are yet to marry and about, let's say, 11 to 13 million weddings that will be happening annually to celebrate these weddings. So the scale of the market is immense. The growth currently, like we discussed earlier, is fueled by rising disposable income, a booming luxury market, core demographic trends that we're seeing with changing consumer preferences as well. And ultimately, with millions that are reaching marriageable age in the next 5 years, it definitely looks like a very interesting sector to be in. In 2024, the Indian wedding sector is expected to grow at about 12 to 20% CAGR terms, reaching about 5 lakh crores or around $67 billion. This growth is driven by a demand in luxury services, digitalization, and sustainability. The future of the Indian wedding industry is definitely looking bright. So what do you think about the Indian wedding industry? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to check out our other videos. You can also read a very detailed analysis of this sector and other sectors in our blogs, our reports that are typically available on the website. Links are available in the description below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell to get more such insights. See you next time and happy investing.
Investment in securities market are subject to market risks. Read all the related documents carefully before investing.